So, before I get into my review, I just wanted to say that there was a person on Facebook that spoiled a pretty major part of this series for me before I had a chance to finish it. And the show had only been out for like 3 days by that point. So I just want to say to that person, and they probably don't even watch this anyway, but regardless, to that person, and I'm not going to name names, but I just want to say, you are trash. Now on to the review. So, Stranger Things Season 3 just recently dropped. And just like what happened last season, where last season took place during Halloween, and so Season 2 came out in October of 2017, this one has a 4th of July theme. And so they dropped it on 4th of July. So I think that was pretty smart marketing. And so this season takes place on July 4th of 1985, which means it took place about 2 months and 23 days before I was born. Which means if you do the math, that means I'm only 24 years old. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. And so before I get into my thoughts of this season, and unlike the person that spoiled it on Facebook, I'm going to give you guys a warning. This is my spoiler warning. If you had not seen Stranger Things Season 3, click off this video, finish watching it, and come back and watch my review when you're done. But I'm assuming if you're still watching this video, you've watched Stranger Things Season 3. So here we go. I think the thing that you could definitely tell from this season that feels different from all the other seasons, from the moment the opening sequence starts, is that they really put some money behind this season. Like, the production budget for this season overall was fantastic. And it's something I noticed even when they released the trailer for this season. I was like, wow, they really put some money behind this season. The special effects, all of it looked great. Like, even when you see the opening moment of the Russians using this giant laser to reopen the Upside Down, I was like, all of this looks great. And then, of course, while I was watching and it was revealed that they were evil Russian scientists, I was like, of course, because whenever you have a movie that deals with science and evil science, it's always either evil Nazi scientists or evil Russian scientists, because those are the two most evil people that you can show in American television or movies, Russians or Germans. And I mean, considering this is supposed to be a throwback to the 80s, I guess technically it makes sense for them to do that and play with that trope, but I'm just like, okay, come on, really? Russians? And so yeah, so you have these scientists trying to reopen the portal to the Upside Down, and I'm just sitting there like, really? Are we doing this again? Have they not learned anything from the last 2 seasons? But then, it's funny because I feel like ultimately Stranger Things is going to be a show that predicts the future, because literally after this season came out, I see headlines like this, and I'm just like, have we not learned anything from basically every single sci-fi horror movie that has ever come out in existence? Like, guys, this is not a good idea. Like, why are we trying to kill ourselves? Like, I don't get it. You thought climate change was going to wipe out humanity? No. It turns out it's actually going to be the Mind Flayer. And again, pushing this 80s theme, you see a guy that's clearly supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger from his Terminator days, because that's basically who this character is playing. Like, even from the hair, like, you can't look at this guy and tell me he's not playing Arnold Schwarzenegger. And on top of that, throughout this season, he's literally hunting Joyce and Hopper. And so after the credits roll and the show picks back up, you get to see that it is the summer of love, because Mike and Eleven, they can't keep their hands off of each other. Like, they've been making out pretty much the whole summer, to the point that Hopper had to create a rule where Eleven has to keep her door at least 3 inches open. And you could tell Hopper is super pissed off about Mike and Eleven being together, as any dad would be, but ultimately you can't really stop a teenager from doing what they're gonna do. And then on top of that, you can't stop a teenager from doing what they're gonna do when your teenage daughter is basically a superhero. You then also get to see the new set for this season, the Starcourt Mall, and again, kudos to the production design, because the mall looks awesome. And this is basically the establishing shot, so you get a reintroduction to all the characters that you know and love. You get to see Lucas and Max, who are now dating. Steve is now working at an ice cream shop with a new character that they introduced, Robin, and I'll get to them later. And you get to see Lucas's sister make a return, who had a minor role last season, and then they brought her back this season because a lot of people loved her character. And again, like I said earlier, like, this show is slowly predicting the future, because while Will, Mike, Lucas, and Max were watching a movie, the power in the mall died. And not only just the mall, the whole city of Hawkins lost power. But yeah, basically 1 week later, in the real world, most of New York also lost power. So essentially what this show is telling me, there are a group of evil Russian scientists hiding in the subways of New York, and they're basically trying to open a portal to the Upside Down world. Oh boy, guys, brace yourselves. We need an 11 in this world. And I don't mean 7-Eleven either. Thank God I was off this weekend, because that would have been a shitstorm. You also find out that Will basically has a spider sense, or as they call it in Far From Home, his Peter Tingle. God, I hate that name. Whenever the Mind Flayer is around, and basically he shows that by touching on the back of his neck. And you also get to see that Jonathan and Nancy are still together, and they also have summer jobs working at the local paper. And finally, you see Dustin comes back after being away for about a month in camp, and according to him, he says he met this awesome new hot girlfriend that he has named Susie. And they kind of play with it throughout the show that maybe he was lying. There is no Susie. And I kind of knew that Susie was going to be real and that she probably wasn't going to show up until like the end. And there's going to be a aha, I told you moment, which they actually did have towards the end of this season. And boy, did she show up and make an impression. Like when she made her Dusty Bun sing that song from A Never Ending Story. Now granted, I've seen A Never Ending Story, but it's been so long ago that I couldn't really tell you that much about it. Like all I really remember is the flying dog thing named Falcor, and then there was a guy named Atreyu, and something about the forever young princess or something, empress or whatever. That's all I can really tell you about Never Ending Story. Like I don't really remember anything about it. But then when them busted out into the theme song, which was super random and out of place, it made me want to go back and watch The Never Ending Story. But also, this is something that I had to talk about because I complained about it during my Aladdin review, where I feel like the show basically stopped to have this musical number. But the thing that I enjoyed in this that I complained about in Aladdin, where in this moment, like even though the show kind of stopped to have this moment, and it stopped at a pivotal point, like people's lives were at stake for them to all of a sudden bust out into song. But the thing that I appreciated in this show is that this show is very self-aware, and they also had fun with it and didn't take that moment seriously. Like they purposely stopped the show to have this homage to The Never Ending Story, as opposed to one of the complaints that I had in Aladdin, where it's like they completely stopped the movie to have this moment where Jasmine sings this song called Speechless, and it came out of nowhere, and they took it completely seriously, and it felt like it was too out of place considering what happened before and after that song. And I think that's why that scene worked for me in Stranger Things, where it didn't work for me in Aladdin. And then kudos to the actor that plays Dustin. I think his name is Gaten Matarazzo. He has a pretty good voice. But that's the word that I think I can best describe my reaction to this season overall. Like, I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. And a lot of it had to do with the strength of the characters. I love each and every one of these characters. Even Steve the Hare Harrington, when you think about where he started in season 1 to where he is now, I love Steve, and I really enjoyed the relationship and friendship that developed between him and Robin. Now, I saw some people complaining, and not like a real complaint, but I saw some people going like, damn, Steve cannot catch a break. Because if you think about the trope with the relationship between Steve and Robin, in most cases, if this was any other show or movie, what would have happened to Steve and Robin would have been co-workers in the beginning. They don't really like each other, but then by the end, and also because of all the life and death stakes, they would have ended up falling in love by the end. But in this show, that didn't happen. And yeah, ultimately, I feel bad for Steve too, but I appreciated that they took a different route with the relationship between Steve and Robin's character. And from the perspective of a gay guy, it's like, we've all been Steve in the sense where you fall for somebody and they end up not being your sexual orientation. Or even if you're not gay, everybody's had that moment where you like somebody that doesn't like you back, or you're in a friends with benefits situation and you want more from that person only for them not to want more. And it's like, we've all been there and we could all relate to Steve. And that's part of what makes Steve so endearing, because we all feel bad for Steve, but I still appreciated that new dynamic and that subversion of expectations between the relationship between Steve and Robin. And then also, considering the show takes place in the 80s, granted, it's created now, but I still appreciated Steve's reaction to when Robin actually told him that she was a lesbian. Speaking about another possible LGBTQ character, I feel like this show is deliberately teasing the fact that Will might possibly be gay. Like, they mentioned it several times. Like, they mentioned it in the first 2 seasons. And then, of course, you get to that moment in the 3rd episode of this season where Mike basically barks at Will saying, it's not my fault you don't like girls. And it's like, are they trying to say Will might actually end up being gay? Like, are they doing this on purpose? Now, granted, the actor himself, I think his name is Noah Snaps, he basically said it's up to the audience's interpretation of whether Will is or isn't gay. But honestly, for me, it could go both ways, because on the one hand, he could be gay and in the closet, and they definitely hinted towards it. But at the same time, you had the first 2 seasons where his development and his growth was basically stunted. In the first season, he was trapped in an upside down world for pretty much the whole season. And then in season 2, he was possessed by the mind flayer. So you had all these instances where his friends got to grow up and they got to develop relationships with each other, whether it's meeting Eleven and then meeting Max, and then they get to experience all this world ending danger together. But yet he's always been left behind in these first 2 seasons. And really, this is the first season where he got to really be himself. And so, of course, if you're a 14-year-old boy going through all those traumatic circumstances, then yeah, you might be a little little bit stunted. So like I said, it can go either both ways. He could be in the closet. And of course, the show takes place in the 80s. Homosexual relations in the 80s were not what they are today. So like I said, it can go both ways of him being in the closet or him being just stunted. But of course, being a gay guy myself, but of course, being somebody that's gay, I'm all for representation. So would I prefer for Will to end up being gay? Yes, because little gay kids, especially in the sci-fi fantasy genre, need somebody like them to look up to. But on the other hand, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed if they decide not to go that route. And so basically throughout this whole season, all Will wants to do is play Dungeons and Dragons with his friends. They've all moved on with these girlfriends, and Mike is basically telling him he needs to grow up. And I'm just like, yeah, right on, Mike. I'm totally with you. Will needs to grow up. I'm trying to say that with a straight face as I have an entire background behind me of superhero action figures and a Poe Dameron body pillow. So yeah, grow up. But yeah, I can't do this review without talking about Pryor Ferguson's Erica. Like, I gotta say, by the end of the series, I ended up liking Erica more than I did in the beginning. But at the same time, I would still say she's probably my least favorite character, and it has nothing to do with Pryor Ferguson's acting. I think it's just more on the fact that I'm just tired of seeing the trend of the sassy black girl. Like, that's essentially all she was. Now, granted, well, no, that's not, to be fair, that's essentially a lot of what she was. Thankfully, on the strength of the Duffer Brothers, they made her more than just a sassy black girl by revealing that she's actually a nerd and a math whiz and really likes My Little Pony. And so I think when they revealed that about her, and the fact that Dustin took her down a peg because of that, that made me more endeared to her character. But at the end of the day, she was still a sassy black girl. And again, I'm tired of that trope for both black women and black girls to always be the sassy black girl. And then you even think about another black girl character that had lines in the show, which was the hospital receptionist. She too was another sassy black girl. And I'm just like, come on, like, I'm tired of that trope. But like I said, it's nothing against Pryor Ferguson. Like, I thought she was a great young actress. And at the end of the day, I ultimately did like her character more by the end. And she did have some great lines. Like, you can't spell America without Erica. Like, who wouldn't like that line? I thought Dacre Montgomery as Billy was great in this role. Billy's definitely an asshole, but if I was in this world, I would be sitting at that poolside, just like those moms, waiting for Billy to start his shift every single day. Billy could get it. But yeah, like I said, Dacre Montgomery is great in this role. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen his audition that's on YouTube, but if you haven't, look up his audition. It's no wonder he got this role. And of course, other things. So I mentioned in the beginning that I was spoiled on Facebook with somebody posting in their status of a major plot point in this show. And that was Jim Hopper dying at the end of the season. So again, I gotta say, that person, trash. But yeah, when he died, and I'll get to that later, but I wish I could say it was unexpected, but I already knew before I even started watching the show. So that took away any level of shock that I may or may not have had. I wish I could have watched that moment and had an actual organic reaction, but it is what it is. I still enjoyed it. But anyway, the reason I said died, because I seriously doubt he's actually dead. Because when you get to the post-credit scene, there's a moment where they're at a Russian prison and they go to take somebody out of the prison, and one of the guards says to the other guard, "Don't take out the American." And I'm just like, who else would that be but Hopper? Because at the end of the day, you didn't actually get to see Hopper's body vaporize. And I always say, if you don't see a body, that means that person is still alive. And hell, sometimes even if you do see a body, that person is still alive. But yeah, but who else would it be but Hopper? And plus, that character is way too popular for them to just kill off like that. But yeah, overall though, I really enjoyed this season. I had fun. Like I said, I love these characters and I love the world. I think the Duffer Brothers are doing a great job with this series. And honestly, I think in terms of rating each season, I would rate season 1, season 3, and then season 2. So yeah, I like this season more than I like season 2. And that's not to say season 2 was bad. I think I just like this one even more. Now granted, you could make the argument, and I do see this argument myself, that for the past 3 seasons, they've been pretty much doing the same exact thing. A gate opens, 11 has to close it. Season 1. A gate opens, 11 has to close it. Season 2. A gate opens, 11 has to close it. Season 3. And more than likely, because you saw from the post-credit scene that the Russians have another Demogorgon, which means there's a gate open somewhere. And so you get to season 4, a gate is open, 11 is gonna have to close it. So it's the same thing over and over again. And I can understand that criticism. And that's part of the reason why I actually liked when 11 found number 8 and they had this little side mission together. Like, I enjoyed that because I feel like it opened the world way more than just the whole Demogorgon stuff, because you do have all these other people around with powers like Eleven has, and my thing is, I'm just like, well, what are their stories and what type of powers do they have? Like, there's a whole Umbrella Academy of people running around with different powers. So I really enjoyed seeing that stuff in season 2, but most people complained about that on Twitter during season 2. So you get to this season, they didn't even bring any of that up, and they're probably not going to bring it up ever again because, like I said, people complained about it. But then at the same time, I'm like, running to the criticism of saying you guys are doing the same thing every season, but then when they try to do something different in season 2, you complain about it and say, oh, go back to the Upside Down and the things that we like. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But yeah, thankfully, because of the strength of the characters and the strength of the actors, I was definitely here for this season. So I would still say Stranger Things season 3 is a blockbuster. So, Stranger Things season 3, did you see it? If you're watching this video, I hope you saw it. What did you think about it? Also, where do you want the show to go for season 4? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you can, please hit that thumbs up button and like this video. It'll really help out the channel. And if you're new to my channel, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I'll catch you guys next time.